What is Tekken anyway? What's going on, people? I'm not dead. Just been pretty busy with work and life and stuff, so I haven't been able to touch the game for a little while now, coming on a few weeks. So unfortunately, I have not been able to kind of cash in on all of the Clive hype or anti-hype or whatever you want to call it, controversy. But I have been seeing the reactions online about exactly the choice of him being put into Tekken as a character and why exactly he does or does not fit quote-unquote Tekken. Because leading up to the last DLC release, we were all thinking, at least most of us are thinking, that it was going to be some kind of guest character, right? It had to be some kind of guest character in order to top Heihachi. And we were right on that, but a lot of people were thinking Tifa because the way she fights in her Final Fantasy games and that hand-to-hand close combat would much better fit Tekken. Instead, we get Clive, who by all accounts comes from a different time setting. He wields a sword, he has different kinds of clothes, he has summons and magic and all kinds of different effects to his attacks that are just a very large departure from what we've come familiar with Tekken. So does having those features mean that he does not belong in Tekken? Or better yet, does the inclusion of Clive indicate a furthering departure from what we know as Tekken? For this, I'd rather not constrain Tekken to a singular definition, but rather a combination of things that I think are unique to Tekken that distinguish it from any other game. First thing that comes to mind would be the characters. There's so many different types of characters and they all have their own unique designs and personalities and fighting styles that come with them. And it's hard to say that Tekken will be Tekken without some of those iconic characters like King and Jin and Nina and Lucky Chloe. Alright, I'm kidding with that last one. Sorry, Chloe fans. And in a similar token are the animations that each of these characters have. You know, they represent their martial arts very well, or whatever fighting style they have very well. They're very fluid, and their legacy, you know, we've had some of these animations for decades at this point, and recognizing those animations are just crucial to how you engage with the game. Something else that I think distinguishes Tekken from other fighting games is just how well it conveys a sense of impact when attacks land in the game. Whether it's the hit visual effects or the sound effects or the slight camera changes that happen when you do certain impactful attacks, down to the slow-mos that are implemented in certain attacks, there's a lot of emphasis given to make attacks really feel like they hurt. The speed of the game really allows the animations for characters to really wind up their attacks, and on the other side have the receiving characters really recoil in whatever attack they were just given. And obviously, one of the most defining features of Tekken is the gameplay itself. The ability to neutral guard, the ability to sidestep and sidewalk, the ability to be able to cancel your movement at any time. The ground game, the aerial juggles and combos, the ability to stay on the ground. Each of these have changed as the entries of this series progressed, especially in Tekken 8. But even so, the foundation is consistent enough that I really cannot call it anything but Tekken. Everything put together gives the game a unique feel and depth, and above all, gives a much higher ceiling for player expression and choice. In gameplay, of course, but also in just how the characters look, with the ability to customize your characters with so many different options. It can make for some really cool designs, but also some really goofy looking ones. Customizations that really end up undermining the epicness of all the cool things that the characters can do. And I think that's a really important part of this whole discussion, because another aspect of what makes Tekken Tekken is its overall tone. No matter how cool some of the characters are, or how well represented their martial arts are in their animations, there's always also a level of silliness to how the game presents itself. It can be seen in the character interactions and how their personality is, some item moves with certain attacks, character endings, and not everyone likes that about Tekken. Like, I would much prefer, seeing Steve resolve his relationship with Nina or something else for his story rather than whatever we got in Tekken 8. But this creates a bit of a dissonance between us as dedicated or serious players and what the game gives us in presentation. Because this might come as a surprise, but I actually really enjoy the grounded martial arts based kind of flow that Tekken's always had, included with a lot of his cast. It kind of reminds me of those 80s and 90s kung fu movies that I used to watch, and seeing that in Tekken was just always really cool. So for the people that play Tekken to participate in a similar kind of feeling, having these other characters that are so outlandish or flashy or whatever really breaks that immersion. But even so, even if I prefer those grounded martial arts styles, even if those grounded styles are the majority of Tekken, all those other flashy shit is part of Tekken too. I can't say that, yeah, the martial arts stuff is Tekken and all that other stuff is the exception or it's not Tekken. It's all Tekken. When I talk with people that have a passive knowledge of fighting games and I talk about how I play Tekken, it's always like, oh, that's the one with the Jaguar guy, right? That's the one with the Yamasaki. And I'm like, yeah, that's the one. So independent of our own personal feelings on it, that is a core part of the brand. That juxtaposition between serious characters and wacky characters or completely out of place characters is what makes this series what it is. Now to go back to Clive. Does he belong in Tekken 8? I think if he was a launch character, then I'd have an issue with it. But as a guest character, I think it's perfectly fine that he's included as a DLC character. In fact, I think it's pretty on brand for Tekken to include guest characters that are nothing like the characters in the series. I also don't think that Clive is indicative of Tekken straying away from its visual identity. Like, yeah, Clive has a lot of stuff going on, but is it any crazier than, Devil Jin or Devil Kazuya transforming and shooting lasers? Crazier than Victor teleporting and using all those sword moves? Crazier than Kazumi summoning her tiger? It's all in one person, but we've seen all this before. Like, I can't put it all on Clive being the beginning of the end for what true Tekken is. Gameplay wise, when it comes to how he plays and how he is to play against, is a matter of balance and design. Because when it comes to ease of use, stance mix-ups, aggression, 50-50s, all these things are not exclusive to Clive. In fact, I'd go as far as to say that the general gameplay of Tekken 8 is a bigger departure of what we know as traditional Tekken than Clive is. Clive might end up being one of the characters that I really do not like going against, but there's also plenty of other Tekken characters that fits that box as well. So those are my thoughts. Feel free to share yours in the comments. What is Tekken? Does Clive really fit in? And what does this mean for future DLC and future guest characters in the series? Let's talk, and I'll see you in the next one.